Well, hello everyone. My name is Barb Roos, and I want to welcome you to this episode of the Better Together Facebook Live broadcast. This Facebook Live episode comes to you live every Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as your host, I love talking about the real things that we as women face. So it doesn't matter where you come from or what you've been through. Here on the Better Together Facebook Live is where we find the hope, the help, and the practical next steps so that we can all get better together. And on this very cold and snowy 2021 day, I am so glad to be with you. There are so many of us who are dealing with some pretty crazy weather out there. So if you are joining me live or on the replay, tell me, where are you at? How much snow did you get? Is there anybody here from Texas? Because I know you guys don't have a lot of power. I just heard from a dear friend of mine who is in Texas, and her text message just said, I hope this message gets to you because they've been without power for 36 hours. So if you have friends or loved ones in Texas, this would be a wonderful time for us to pray for them. My oldest daughter is in Oklahoma, and yesterday she was without water and heat, and her fridge went out. So things are better today. But if you're joining me, please tell me, where are you from, and how is the weather in your area? If you are from Florida and California, this is a welcoming place. You are more than welcome to tell us about your weather. I'm not sure if we're going to rustle up a lot of sympathy for you if it's in the 60s, but you are welcome here. So I had a friend yesterday. She were friends on Instagram, and she had mentioned she lives in Southern California, and they're in the 60s. And she said, is anybody going to get mad if I tell you that I'm cold? And I said, you may want to wait until March to do all of that. So I want to welcome you, and I'm so glad that you're here. But I want to say hello to those of you who are joining us. Christine, she is in Virginia, and she says it snowed all day. Not sure how much we have, but it's cold. Woo! Well, honey, if what is blowing in from us over to you, buckle up, Buttercup, because it's been wild and rough across the country. So thank you for joining us today. And Tabitha, thank you for dropping in the link to Jill and Mark Savage webinar on rebuilding trust. So if you are married, or even if you're engaged or you're separated, and there have been trust that's been broken in your marriage, I want you to click that link. There is a free webinar this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this webinar gives you and your spouse, or just you alone, even if your spouse isn't willing to watch, you can sign up to watch. And Mark and Jill are going to go through the 4 keys in a 45-minute workshop to help you identify how to rebuild trust. It's even if there's been betrayal, you'll hear Mark and Jill's story. They understand if you've faced betrayal, how to get your spouse back on board. Even if you go, you know what, nothing can save us, Mark and Jill will be able to give you hope there. They will talk about how to avoid the pain of going back to the way that things were. And finally, how to move your marriage from hurtful to helpful. So I want you to please check out the webinar tonight. So thank you for letting me just give a little commercial for them. Carolyn Doyle, thank you for joining us. Let me go ahead and introduce to you today's guest. I am excited because this is a dear friend of mine. Jill Savage is an author and speaker who is passionate about encouraging families. She is the author of many books, including Real Moms, Real Jesus, Living with Less So Your Family Has More, and her best-selling series, The No More Perfect. We got No More Perfect Moms, No More Perfect Kids. We've got No More Perfect Marriages. And so we're going to be talking about No More Perfect Marriages today. And I've already mentioned the free webinar that Mark and Jill have. She has been featured on Focus on the Family as well as many other outlets. She is the founder of Hearts at Home, an organization that encouraged moms. Jill and her husband, Mark, have 5 kids. They are all grown up. She's got a beautiful family. She's got all kinds of grandbabies. And Jill and Mark make their home in Normal, Illinois. And so, everyone, I would love for you to welcome to the Better Together Facebook Live my dear friend, Jill Savage.
Hey, hello, Barb.
Hi, Jill. A good afternoon. I am so glad that you are here. Are you warm?
I am so sorry about the tech difficulties. Oh, my goodness. It was crazy.
That is all right. We were talking about tech difficulties because, well, in America, we got a pandemic and we have a crazy winter snowstorm.
Yes, we do. It's crazy.
So out there in Normal, Illinois, how did the weather storm go for you guys?
Well, let me tell you, the guy that clears our driveway got stuck in our driveway today.
Oh,
yes.
Well, you know, that paints quite a picture right there. All right, then. My goodness gracious. Well,
I couldn't believe it.
So how long did it take for him to get out?
He had to wait for another guy to come and pull him out. So, yeah, he was stuck for, I don't know, half an hour.
He was good and stuck.
Yep, he was.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to make it today. I gave the audience a little bit of a commercial for the webinar that you and Mark have tonight. We're going to get over to that in just a moment. But I would be remiss if we just take a moment because my Better Together Facebook Live audience hears me talk about my fabulous producer all of the time. And the reason why I have Tabitha as my fabulous producer is because Tabitha used to live with you. And so Tabitha, come on out from backstage and join us.
There's my girl. Hi, Tabitha.
Good to see you.
I love it. Here, come here. Come say hi. Here's my husband, too.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, both of you.
Hi. So good to see you.
I know. So fun.
Well, for the audience that doesn't know the backstory, Tabitha is my producer, and so she makes the magic happen every week. But before I had Tabitha lived with Jill. And so, Jill, tell us briefly about how all of that came to be.
Yeah. Well, Tabitha was a student at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, and she was looking for an internship. And we had posted that our ministry had an internship available. And so she reached out and we interviewed. And because she was from Canada, we asked her if she wanted to do her internship from distance, or if she wanted to do an internship and live with us. And she chose to live with us. And so she became our Canadian daughter. And then after she graduated from college, she came and lived with us again while she was trying to get her work visa, which, Tabitha, that ended up going a lot longer than you thought, right?
Yeah, we thought it was going to be like a month or two, and it was 10 months.
Yep. And had the pandemic not happened, it would have been longer than that, I think, too, because at that point, yeah. So it was kind of crazy, but we miss you. I don't have anybody to watch When Calls the Heart with.
I miss you guys too. I'm like, I can't wait till borders are open and we can travel again so I can see you guys.
I know.
Well, I wanted you guys to be able to see each other and to be able to make a connection. And for me, it's been so much fun because before I met Tabitha, I just love the fact that you had her in your home and she was interning and learning. And it's just been fun watching and seeing how God has unfolded things over time. And so thank you, Jill, for saying that first yes, because Tabitha has been such a huge blessing to so many here on Better Together.
I love that. Love that.
All right. Well, we are going to get started. Tabitha, you going to go back to working your magic?
I will. Nice to see you, Jill.
Well, so Jill, you and Mark have a busy day because you have a webinar coming up this evening on rebuilding trust. And so I wanted us to have a conversation today because this is February, Valentine's Day just passed. But there are a lot of couples out there who are struggling with their relationships because trust has been broken. And so today there's 3 things that you're going to share with us about how to rebuild trust. And so I want you to share a part of your story. And as you're doing that, Tabitha, we've got an icebreaker question for our audience, right as Jill's going to start her story. And so, audience, if you're watching live or on the replay, the question is, what do you believe that it is possible to restore trust again? That is the question. And so, Jill, would you tell our audience your story and just kind of lead us into what we're going to be talking about today with those 3 areas that we're going to talk about?
Right. Well, you know what? Mark and I am so grateful that we are both fine with sharing our story. And, it has been a place where God has turned our pain into his purposes. But 10 years ago, my husband went through the darkest season of his life. And we now look back on that. I mean, he was struggling with depression, but also it was a midlife crisis. He was unfaithful during that time. And in that season, he chose to leave, and he chose to actually leave the kids and I. And it was so very painful. One of the most, in fact, I've been through breast cancer, been through other painful things in my life, and nothing is like the pain of betrayal. And so it was a really, really dark season. But on Easter Sunday of 2012, Mark had his own personal resurrection. He did a U-turn that day. It was amazing. And I saw it. I saw the surrender. In fact, he has done your study, Barb, your surrender study, and loves it. He's like, yes. He's like reading it and highlighting it, because that surrender is just so, even still, so fresh for him and such an important part of rebuilding trust. So anyway, it took us 18 months to put the wheels back on the bus. It took us 18 months to consider ourselves healed. We still didn't share our story publicly till about 3 years after that. And when we did, we realized how needed it was. And so we wrote a book, No More Perfect Marriages, and we've now created resources around something that we call the roadmap to rebuilding trust.
Well, I, for one, am so thankful that you both made the decision that you were willing to tell your story. I've had Mark on the Better Together Facebook Live before as a guest because you and I both receive multitudes of emails from women who have faced betrayal in their marriages. And some of their stories turn out like yours, where there is a painful road to reconciliation. And then some of their stories turn out like mine, where for a variety of reasons, the marriage ends. What I love about you and Mark is that you are so honest about how hard it is to rebuild trust. For you, there's a lot of details that you left out, but for you as the spouse that was betrayed, what was so hard about losing trust for you?
I think number one, the bottom just drops out of your world. Like, that's really, you are disoriented, because what you thought your world looked like, and then you find out that there's been this other life being lived in some way, shape, or form, it's just so incredibly disorienting. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me, is I did not understand I was trying to wrap my brain around it. And it was just like the energy that takes to process, reframe what's been going on the last 6 months or the last year or the last 2 years or whatever it is. It just really takes a lot of time and energy to sort through.
And for those who see you today, I mean, you've been a friend of mine for years, and you have this bright and gorgeous smile. You have a confidence and an elegance, and you have such a fire for helping others. It might be hard for some women to look at you and go, but was it really that hard?
Well, let me tell you, I know what it's like to be in the fetal position, practically sucking your thumb. That's, at my darkest. I remember particularly after Mark left, the day he left, the days after he left, I actually had a friend that came and stayed with me during that time. I was so grateful. Her husband said, she's an empty nester. And he said, you go stay as long as you need. And I think she was with me for 3 days. And had she not been here, I don't think I would have eaten. I would have drank anything. I don't think my boys, I was almost incapable of taking care of they were teenagers at the time, but I was just so distraught. And so I know the pain of that. And it is so very difficult. But I also know the redemption of it. Whether your marriage makes it or not, God still redeems that pain. And so, I am grateful that my marriage did, but I've seen that in your life, Barb, that God is redeeming the pain in a different way.
Absolutely. Well, in part of the process, God, he does what he does. And then there is a part, though, that we have to play. And so there are some truths when it comes to this idea of rebuilding trust, because if it is possible, if both parties are willing, it's possible to rebuild trust. And so there's 3 truths that you share. And so I want to walk through those and get some highlights from you. And audience, if you're just joining us, this is Jill Savage, and she and her husband, Mark, are the co-authors of No More Perfect Marriages. And this evening on February 17th, they're hosting a Rebuilding Trust webinar. And if for some reason you're listening to this on the replay, we're going to have the link there. You're still going to be able to find out about their resources. But Jill is now going to talk to us about these 3 foundational truths that are important to rebuilding trust. And so, Jill, number 1, you say that rebuilding trust is possible no matter how badly it's been broken.
Yes.
Tell us about that briefly.
Yes, it is. And one of the biggest things that happens when we struggle with a broken relationship is we often lack hope. And man, that hope is where the lack of hope is where we question, is it even possible? I mean, it's broken so badly. Is it even possible? And so, Mark and I like to call ourselves, we're dealers of hope. And, that it is possible with two people that are willing to do what it takes. It's absolutely possible to rebuild trust, no matter how bad it's been broken. That's so important for us to communicate, to give that hope to others, because oftentimes I think that we do question that, but it is absolutely possible.
I love that. And Carolyn, thank you for your comment. Carolyn, when she talked about rebuilding trust, she says, yes, it takes 2. Often takes outside intervention. You both have to work on your own issues. And so that is such wisdom there, Carolyn.
And I would add to what Carolyn said. It takes individual personal work and it takes couple work, both.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, Jill, then number 2, you say that number 2 is that, and I can't wait to hear more, the trust breaker is the trust maker. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, this is so important to understand, because when trust has been broken, what often happens is if we don't understand this principle, we end up that the person whose trust was broken becomes a policeman in the life of the person who has broken the trust. And it is the most dangerous dynamic for a hurting marriage. So one of the things that we've identified is the importance of pushing accountability. So the trust breaker pushes accountability. They don't require that the faithful spouse pull it from them. And what a difference this makes when they realize, in fact, Mark, one of the things that he often says is that, one of the challenges, we call ourselves before our crisis a 1.0 marriage, and after the crisis is our 2.0 marriage. And so one of the things in our 1.0 marriage is that I parented him. And that was a place I had to deal with. But part of it is also he began to realize that I didn't have the need to parent him when he actually stepped up. And so when he was the trust maker and was pushing the accountability, I didn't have to be the parent or the police. And it changed the dynamics of our relationship. It was so much healthier.
I love that. I love that idea that policeman concept. That is so true. And I think that might resonate for anyone out there. If your trust has been broken, that you resonate with that idea that you've become the police. You're always on the lookout, a detective for, are they doing that again? But it's the person who broke the trust is the one who steps up. And so, Jill, if you have a quick example off the top of your head, how did Mark step into that role of being the trust maker?
Yeah. So here's one. So so the person that he was unfaithful with lived in another community. And if he was going to travel to that community, because it happens to be where we have extended family, and let's just say I couldn't go for some reason, he needed to make a trip to see his mother, and I was unable to go at the time that he needed to go. So he would automatically ask a friend to go with him. And he had a friend who is on disability, but had the ability, to had some freedom and would travel. And he would just say, you know what, I need to go to see my mom, and I know you can't go. So I've asked Carl to go with me. Like, he just didn't even give an opportunity. I didn't ask him to ask Carl, but he said, I want to be above reproach. I do not want to even tempt temptation. And so he did that from day one. He still does it. And honestly, we're way past, I completely trust him, but he feels like now it's a guardrail that he chooses to put up.
That's beautiful. I love it. Terry Bryan, she loved that word picture of a policeman. She says the unfaithful pushes accountability rather than the faithful pulling it. She said, although I do think that the faithful partner needs room to let the other partner knows what speaks accountability to them. To be able to voice and go, what does that
I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is very helpful for them to know that what actions they could push your way would be helpful for you. Yep.
So good. All right. And Jill, the last one, and then we're going to tell the audience again about the Rebuilding Trust webinar you have in just a few hours. But number 3, when it comes to the foundations of rebuilding trust, this is so important, that apology and forgiveness don't rebuild trust, but they start the process. I think that whatever you're about to say is about to bring some freedom, because there's a lot of expectations we put on apologies and forgiveness. And you've just clarified they can't carry the weight of everything, but they are important. So tell us more.
Yes. And this is what holds people back from forgiving, because they think if I forgive, then I have to trust. And it's like, no. If you forgive, you open the door for the other person to begin to rebuild trust. This is why this is so very, very important.
That is so good. And you and Mark do a lot of coaching for couples in crisis. I have recommended to you guys, recommended you countless times. Why this is really a hurdle for the party that's been hurt. And so what are some of the, do you have any other wisdom that you share with someone who has this fear that if I forgive them, that means that what they did was okay?
Oh, right. No, you're not saying that it was okay. You're saying that you're choosing to not be held hostage by it any longer. That's what you're saying. And you're saying that you are willing to begin to allow your spouse to rebuild trust. And when they do that, honestly, it's like you take a bucket, okay? And we all have these trust buckets. And when somebody breaks trust, they've dumped the bucket. And the only way to rebuild trust is they start refilling the bucket one drop at a time. That is the only way. That is the only way that you can actually rebuild trust. So, forgiving does not rebuild trust. It just cracks the door open so that the bucket can start being refilled.
That is so good. If you're listening live or on the replay, my guest today has been Jill Savage. She is the co-author of the book, No More Perfect Marriages, with her husband, Mark. And this evening, Jill and Mark are hosting a free webinar. And I'm actually going to we're getting ready to wrap the show up, but I really want you, if you are in a place where there's just trust that needs to be rebuilt in your relationship, I want to take a moment and I want to show you Jill and Mark, the registration page. And so if you're watching right now, you'll start to see the page here. And Jill, this evening, this is a 45-minute webinar, and I've got up the 4 keys. Can you tell listeners what they can expect this evening?
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about how people can move past that broken trust, even when they feel like they emotionally, they question if they emotionally can. And then we're going to talk about, well, how do you, if your spouse feels like there's no hope, how do you actually get them to engage? And then we're going to talk about how do you not have a broken marriage that's in the process of healing? How does it not go back to being what it was? Because for most of us, we look at it and go, I really don't want to just restore what was there. I want to renovate what was there. So we're going to talk about how you renovate that and ultimately how you grow a 2.0 marriage and how you move from that 1.0 that maybe had some unhealthy elements to it and you find healing, but then you move on to the 2.0.
I love that. Well, we have put the link in the comments again. Not only is there the link for Jill and Mark's book, No More Perfect Marriages, we also have the link to tonight's webinar. And Jill, if for some reason someone's watching this on the replay and they missed tonight's webinar, what can you share with someone who says, you know what, my husband and I, we need to rebuild trust? What resources would you like to offer?
Yeah, well, even if they miss the webinar, they can still go to that same address. It's rebuildingtrust.us. And we'll actually have it posted there throughout the remainder of the week. So if they miss it, I'm getting a ton of people in South Africa that are like, it's going to be 3 a.m. So I don't even know where people are hearing about it. But anyway, we have people all over the world that are going to tune in, and obviously it doesn't work for them. So there will be a recording. It will also be posted at rebuildingtrust.us. We encourage people to attend live because then they can obviously ask questions and interact with us. But the recording will be available there.
Well, I love that. And if you are listening and you know that there is someone in your life and their marriage has been struggling, if there's been a breach of trust or they're just in a rocky place, you can share this episode with them and it'll be here on the page. We've had a couple of comments that have come in as we're wrapping up the show. Terry Bryan, she was talking about her marriage And she said, when you were talking about policemen, she said, after his first affair, I told God I wouldn't spend my life babysitting my husband, and that God would have to show me if there was anything I ever needed to know. And that was a very healthy approach. And so thank you, Terry. And then Nancy Roper, she said, so many need help. So
Yes,
Jill,
they do.
Jill, thank you. Thank you for what you and Mark are doing and how you are serving couples out of one of the most difficult relational experiences. And so we're thankful that you came by today's Better Together Facebook Live.
Well, thank you for having me, Barb.
Well, you know, honey, I love you, and I'm glad that you're here. And for everyone who is listening, I'm so glad that you joined us for today's Better Together Facebook Live. New episodes are air every Tuesday at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to watch this on the replay, you can right on this Facebook page, or you can check out previous episodes at barbroos.com on the blog page. And did you know that we actually are on Roku? The Better Together Facebook Live show, I know, airs on Roku. So,
aren't you something?
So you can join us live over there. But until next week, my friends, I'm glad that you're here. Let's all get better together. See you next week.